Right, and here we are again then, down at the Wine Cellar again, with Chris and Paul this time around, because it's a bit of a bigger subject. We were talking about a bit about the fineries of tasting last time, and how you might actually appreciate your wine, looking at it in the glass, getting your nose in, having a sniff, having the all-important taste, looking at the colour, all these sort of things. Putting that to test with a very nice bottle of Garvey, which is on offer at the moment. So if you listen to that podcast, you can come down to the Wine Cellar, check it out and taste along. Now we are moving to a country, perhaps the first country people think of when you say wine, and that's France. Is that still the case? Is that the first country people still associate with wine, you reckon?
Well, I certainly do, Howard. In France, you've got just about every style of wine, from the very driest of champagnes to the very sweetest, luscious dessert wines that you're going to get, and everything in between. And the variety that you can get in France, really, you cannot get anywhere else in the world.
Still the place to go, you reckon, then, Chris, for a quality wine, or is everywhere else catching up?
Good question, that. I would certainly say for your classics, it's always going to be the best place. There's nothing quite like opening a decent bottle of Bordeaux or a really nice Burgundy or something like that, of which there are comparative kind of styles out there in the rest of the world as well. However, you've got to remember a lot of the great varieties we know and love today, most of them didn't necessarily originate in France, but that's how they've sort of spread throughout the world. So, you know, a lot of your noble great varieties, as we would call them, i.e. sort of Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, all those kind of things. France is where they got their name, really, and that's where the distribution has kind of come from in one way or another to the rest of the world. So, yeah, we should always be looking at it as not necessarily the home, but certainly one of the major players in the wine world, definitely.
And you were saying, just as we were chatting before we sat down here, which slightly surprised me, that you get people coming into the Wine Cellar who perhaps have started drinking wines more recently. So maybe they're drinking Australian wines or New Zealand wines or Chilean wines or any of the New World wines, of which there are a whole host now, and sort of say, ooh, don't really do French.
We hear that a lot, and then the same people then will buy a Bordeaux blend from Chile or Argentina, where the winemaker's trying to make a wine taste like a good French wine. Okay,
so France has a wide variety of wines, and so pretty much, in theory, there should be something for everyone. So we've got a couple here in front of us, I'm glad to say. One white, one red. So we'll start with the white, shall we?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think, who's going to do the honours? No.
I will happily do that.
There we go.
Howard.
I knew there'd be a man there with the right equipment. And I'm happy to say last week we were talking about stealth enclosures and the screw tops. We're back to the proper, well, for some people anyway, proper cork sealing in any case. And a man with a waiter's friend, looking pretty handy. He looks like he might have done this before.
Just once or twice.
Yeah, so let's see how he's getting on.
Ooh, sounds like Wimbledon.
Quick sniff of the cork. So there you go. While you're pouring that, that's something you quite often see people do, is when they've opened the cork, just have a smell of the base. Is that just, again, to see whether it could be corked or any problems with the actual storage?
Yeah, I mean, there is a debate as to whether it's actually worthwhile sniffing the cork or not. I always tend to do it, mainly because more often than not, if there is any taint in the cork, you will probably pick up on it pretty quickly, especially as soon as the bottle's been opened. But it's also worth noting that sometimes, as soon as you open the bottle, it can smell not quite right for a few moments, just as some of the kind of preservative kind of sulfites and whatever are still there and just escaping the bottle before you actually go into it. But for the most part, I'm just sniffing the cork to make sure it doesn't smell properly musty or anything like that. And that one smells really nice and fresh. So, yeah, it should be a nice little wine, this.
Lovely. So what have we opened here?
Right, so the red and the white we are doing today are both Cotes du Rhone Villages. So I'm sure Paul will explain shortly exactly what that means. But starting with the white, we're in the southern Rhone Valley for these. So the white is very typical of the style of wine you'll get down there. It's a right old mix-up of several different grape varieties. So leading the charge, we have Grenache Blanc. Then we've got Viognier in there as well. Then we also have some Marsanne, some Roussanne, bit of Beau Blanc, and some Claret as well, actually.
That's a real blend, isn't it? Yeah, a real blend.
Yeah, they've basically just picked up a field and shoved it in the bottle, I think. But it's actually very traditional for down that sort of area. It's worth noting this does have a bit of oak influence in it, so I think about a third of the wine is aged in a small amount of new oak, and then second, third, and fourth use oak as well, but only about a third of the wine. So it's not particularly oaky on the palate or the aroma or anything like that, but this is a classic case of oak bringing balance rather than any proper flavour to it. Also worth noting for anyone who is a bit of a winey anorak like me, that the Marsanne and Roussanne are co-fermented, and then the Beau Blanc and the Claret are co-fermented as well, before all being blended together with the other component parts.
Wow. Okay. So let's have a look then. We've got it in the glass, so a quick swirl round.
And so remembering from the other week, first sense we are going to use is our sense of sight. Now that looks pretty clear to me. Clear to you, Paul?
Yep.
I always need Paul to double check for me. But yeah, nice and clear. So we're
Pale lemon.
yeah, really nice colour on that. So then we'll use our nose, of course. Ooh, lovely, slightly floral character going on there.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It is a lovely pale lemon colour. I must have go with that. Nice swirl round. And I was thinking, again, it's definitely a very floral. So last week we were talking about sort of that minerally, flinty, citrusy sort of nose. This is definitely got much more of a, sort of a flowers and perhaps a bit of passion fruit or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think you're definitely getting something a little bit tropical in there. But also, I'm getting a very slight hint of something almost like fennel.
Mm. That's interesting. Paul, your thoughts?
It's just quite an intense nose, really. It's lovely, sort of quite developed sort of flavours.
It is. So it's a real. I'm just going to have another sniff now. I'm going to have a taste. It is an intense nose. It has got that, tropically fruit, flowers, sort of, almost like one of those sort of vines you sort of see going over in sort of exotic gardens. Anyway, I'm going to taste it while I'm thinking of that.
It's a lovely full palate to it, definitely.
It has. It's very fine.
You've got almost this kind of richness on the palate there as well, so you can almost get the influence of the oak coming through there. Like I said, there's no particular flavours you'd associate with the oak, so you're not really getting any vanilla or bags of spice or anything like that, but you are getting this lovely kind of textural mouthfeel, which is almost, slightly creamy in a way, I would say. So it for me, that kind of spells to me that firstly, it's a lovely summer wine. However, it's got the body to it that I could quite happily drink it this time of year, and I will. But it's also quite a food-friendly wine, and you'll find this with, a lot of European countries, not just France in particular, but they're very, very food and wine focused as a pair. It's not, our sort of British way of, you're making a wine just to be drunk and for the effect of it or something like that. This screams to me a very classical European food and wine goes hand in hand. You'd have your lovely grilled asparagus with a glass of this or something like that as you're on your lunch in the vineyards.
That would do me, I must admit. What would you have with them, Paul? Would you pair that up with any particular foodstuffs, or would you be happy to have a glass of that on its own?
I think it's fine on its own, but it'd be nice with some charcuterie as a starter, I think. You could even have it with the cheese course at the end, because it has almost got a sort of a honey, luscious sort of finish to it.
There is, isn't there? There's definitely a touch of sweetness at the end, though.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a real. Again, it's one which doesn't disappoint on the nose or in the mouth. It has to be said. We're listening to the blend there of God knows how many different types of grapes going into it, and I think that's reflected maybe in the nose. There's so much sort of going on when you get your nose in there. My nose isn't good enough to get all the scents, but you can certainly you do get that, like I said, the tropicality, that sort of. You can sort of tell it's sort of slightly oaky, but it's not massively vanilla-y, and that's on the sort of on the taste as well. And that, as you say, it is oak, but it's not got that heavily oaked vanilla-y flavour. It's still got a lot of different layers going on there. So you could, again, I would happily drink this on its own, but it probably would be really nice with. Yep, I could see it with asparagus. I could certainly see it with charcuterie, or again maybe a sort of grilled chicken or something like that, or just sat out in the sun. He says as it's coming in, it's blowing a Julian rain. So yeah, very fine indeed. So this readily available, something that you could try out. Come down to the Wine Cellar, try this out, and this would be something. So would you recommend this to someone who again thought, you know what, I don't like French wines? Would this be one worth trying?
Well, it's quite a complex wine, so possibly not for somebody new to wine, somebody for the beginner. It as we said, there's so many different layers to it that it's quite a complex wine. So I wouldn't recommend that as a sort of a Saturday night party wine. But if somebody's having a dinner party, certainly.
Just the thing.
Yeah.
Just the thing. Right. Well, I think we're all agreed that we would happily have that one on its own, or again with what you like, really. Take your pick. The thing with wines is, as we said last week, it's very personal. Whatever works for you works, and that's pretty much the end of it in many ways. No matter what anyone else says, if it works for you with a bar of chocolate, then you have it with a bar of chocolate. Don't let us put you off, it has to be said. On the other side of the table, we are looking at some red here, and we're talking about, again, Cotes du Rhone Villages. Can we say a little bit more about that? When would people say Cotes du Rhone Villages?
Cotes du Rhone is a massive wine producing area of France. It's called the Garden of France, really. It stretches for miles and miles and miles. And within that, there's about 13 or 14 villages. The most famous of which is probably Châteauneuf-du-Pape. There's Rasteau, Gigondas, Vaccaras, Queyran, plenty of them. So if you see a wine called Châteauneuf-du-Pape, that means that the grapes have come from that particular village. If you see a wine that says Cotes du Rhone Village, it means the grapes can have been sourced from 1, 2, 3, or several of the villages, anywhere in that area, and then blended together. And that's what this one is. This is a blend from Sablé, Ségeret, and Queyran, and it's bottled in Queyran at Boutonneau's vineyard. This particular red wine is about 80% Grenache, 20% Syrah. A little bit of oak again, but similar to the white wine, the oak basically just softens the fruit a bit rather than flavouring it.
Really sort of dominating it.
Yeah. So and they let the sort of the fruit flavours come out. Organically made, but not organically certified. Tiny little bit of sulphur in just to preserve it. Just keeps the wine stable. Try it for yourself.
Right. Okay. That's what we're going to try next. Then it's a rather fine-sounding red. So a sort of simpler blend, as it were. Only two varieties.
Yeah. Grenache. The main three grapes really in the Cotes du Rhone are Grenache Noir, Syrah, and Mourvèdre. Some of them have got all three in, but this particular one is Grenache and Syrah, which is for Cotes du Rhone generally you need to have at least 60% Grenache in, and then it can be a mix of Syrah and Mourvèdre for the remaining 40%.
Marvellous. So the bottle's just being opened there, and just while Chris is just getting the glasses sorted out, the one thing I was thinking about, if you go across to some of these villages, as you said, which I've been happy to do on a few occasions, and I'm always sort of gobsmacked because you hear these massive names like Châteauneuf-du-Pape or Chablis or something, and you go and you just drive into this little tiny village and you think, I'm here.
It's like going from Michael to Foxdale and St John's in between. That's exactly what it's like, and more often than not, there's the church on the hill and. Yeah,
I was gobsmacked. I was expecting somehow that you just sort of see this sign, as you say, as you might say, going into Foxdale or St John's, you think, Chateauneuf de Pape, I think, I'm in Chateauneuf de Pape,
Yeah, no,
this is it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, no, I stayed in the village of Cairan, which recently has been nominated as one of the Cotes du Rhone Villages in its own right. And it's a tiny place, like I say, with a church and on the hill and the vineyards all around. And the beauty of it is most of them are just small producers, and they're trying to make the best wine that they can possibly make rather than just mass producing and selling to the co-op or whatever. It's just good quality stuff.
Marvellous. Right, well, we've got some good quality stuff in our glasses now. So here we go. Let's take a look then and give it a quick swizzle round. Just to open it out a bit. Okay. So, right, there you go. You're the nose master then, Chris. What are you getting off this?
Well, firstly, I'll just mention it's got a lovely, very kind of deep, loving red colour to it. I mean, you'd kind of expect that for a red wine, wouldn't you? But I can tell it's quite youthful, mainly because of the colour of this. So it's got some purplish hues to it, but if it was an older wine, I'd expect that to be a bit more towards kind of brick red kind of thing. However, as it is, we are 2020 vintage, yeah, which is about right for this. Really, Cotes du Rhone, you want to be drinking, sort of Cotes du Rhone Villages, you want to be drinking within sort of 2-3 years of the vintage.
So
anyway,
not something you're going to lay down and
no, not for this. Maybe for the big brother that we do, the Cairan, that's got a bit more aging potential. But this is meant to be fruity and fun, really.
Okay.
On the nose, ample fruit there. Lots of kind of red berries, hedgerow fruit going on. Almost wafts of Balaguer Lane in Peel there with the blackberries.
That's a great line. I'm just going to give it a quick sniff as well. No, definitely is, isn't it? It's got that sort of, brambly red fruits.
Plums. Yeah.
Plums, maybe. Yeah. Quite soft. It's not a...
Exactly. That's exactly how a good Cotes du Rhone should be. That nice sort of softness. Nice juicy fruit, but crunchy juicy fruit, but that sort of soft on the palate.
Yes, almost sort of a caramelly, sort of softy, sort of chewy note to it. But okay, all right, looks great.
A little bit of spice as well there, actually.
Yep,
just on the edge of the nose there.
Go with that. Well, let's get on in there. Let's try it out.
So all that sort of aroma, all those various different aromas you're getting are really carrying through onto the palate there. So you've got this bright kind of bursting fruit to the fore of the palate, and as it works its way back towards your gullet, it's releasing a bit more of that fruit, but I'm getting a nice little bit of spice on the finish as well. Almost slightly sweet in a way, but really nice dry tannins as well. Quite subtle tannins, but enough to give it enough kind of backbone and give it a bit more substance. Lovely little wine that. It's the kind of thing where I could quite happily drink that just sat on the couch weeknight sort of thing. And I'm pretty sure that's what the vast majority of our customers who have bought this wine over the past 20 odd years have been doing. But it's also the kind of wine that will work really well with Sunday lunch and things like that. It'll go with a variety of different meats and veg dishes and things like that as well. So it's a very universal sort of wine. Yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Paul? Is it something that's tickled your palate?
Yeah, this is one of the most popular red wines we've got in the shop. Medium priced, medium bodied, very smooth on the finish. It's the sort of thing you could have with just about anything. Bag of crisps, but it would stand up to a Sunday roast.
Yeah, perfect.
And I've had it with both.
Don't know if I've ever had it with crisps. I've certainly had it with a Sunday roast before now. But yes, it is. It's something that's. I don't think it's going to offend anyone, isn't it? It's not. Exactly. It's not that sort of characterful, but it's as you say. It's got that sort of just nicely rounded, sort of versatile, the sort of thing that you think you could have it with all sorts. Plenty of fruit at the front, a little bit of spice at the back, as you say. Not too hard. A little bit of those sort of soft tannins. So you can taste a little bit, but not too much on the mouth. And I do get a bit of a sweetness, like a sort of little, like I say, sort of caramelly something going on, I think, when I sort of swallowed it as well. Very nice indeed. So this has been a good seller as well. This is popular. Both these reds and the whites have been popular sellers in the shop.
Yeah, I mean, there's a rosé as well to complete the set, which has been very popular all summer, which is a nice sort of very light coloured rosé made very much like a Provence style, so light and dry. It also has, the red also has a big brother called Keran, which is aged for 2 years in oak barrels, which is much fuller, bit more dense, obviously more oak, more fruit, more weight, more everything. And that's a really, really good dinner party wine. And again, it doesn't exactly break the bank. It's tremendous value.
And I suppose that's the thing as well, isn't it? And that you've got, and particularly you go through the shop there, you can spend anything. Well, I suppose that's the question now. What would you spend, do you think, now to get a decent bottle of wine?
Anything?
Tenner, less, more?
Well, what you're drinking here now are right in the £10 area. And for that quality, I think that they're outstanding. But there's some very good everyday wines from sort of £7-8 upwards. The one I was talking about that's aged for 2 years in oak is about £15, but there you're paying for the aging. I mean, the barrels, they go into first use barrels, which cost, I think, about £500 a barrel, and they use them for 4 years and then move them on. So every year they're replacing 25% of their stock. So there's a big cost implication, and that's why if a wine's been aged in oak, they tend to be more expensive. So you're obviously paying for the time that it's been aged and the actual cost of the barrel.
And what about you, Chris? So we were saying maybe the white with that massive sort of blend, not an ideal starting place if people wanted to be convinced of trying a sort of an affordable French wine. The red, would you go with that if someone was thinking, I don't know whether I like French or not, would this be a good starting point?
I've always found, certainly the Cotes du Rhone Rouge that we do, to be a really good wine for getting people who are just starting out on their wine journeys and so on, or may well be well versed in wine but not particularly versed in France. It's a really good one to go for in that respect, because it's not one-dimensional by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a simple wine to kind of wrap your head around, and it also gives you sort of the basics of the Rhone Valley. Now there's obviously multiple different areas of France and different regions that all have their own grape varieties, X, Y, Z, and different things allowed to be permitted in there. But certainly something like this can kind of give you that introduction to that one specific area and give you the information about it and give you the kind of atypical flavour profile of an area as well. So honestly, for a tenner, it's a real education. To be honest, including the white as well, to be fair. Slightly more complex than what a lot of people may want to go for at that kind of price, but we always have other options here at the Wine Cellar anyway. We've got quite a large French section, and within that we've got a lot from sort of the south of France and the southwest and so on, which is where you tend to find your bargains in France, I suppose you could say. The only issue with it for a lot of people is, as Paul quite rightly pointed out before, a lot of your French wines won't say what's in them. So unless you've got a bit of knowledge yourself, you probably won't have any idea what grapes go into there or what the flavour profile is going to be, or so on and so forth. Luckily, at the Wine Cellar, you've got some very helpful people who can tell you all that and certainly point you in the right direction. So, I would say if you are interested in, learning a bit more about France or want to get into some French wines, just come have a chat with us. We'd love to speak to you all, definitely.
There you go. They are very approachable. I speak from experience. They don't bite. They're more than happy to chat about wines, so you can listen to us chat all day about the red and the white from the Cotes du Rhone Villages, but the best thing to do is get yourself a bottle from the Wine Cellar for a very reasonable price, and then you can listen to the podcast anytime and taste along and see what you think. Do you agree with us on the flavour notes, or what you'd eat it with, or the nose on it? Everyone's different, so taste along and see perhaps, and you can pick up, like I said, a bottle for next to nothing, or if you don't fancy these, a lot of other wines to choose from. Come down and have a chat with the guys. Before we go for this month, October, of course, we have the big wine tastings. They're pretty much sold out already, I think.
Week 1 sold out. Week 2, there's a handful of places left, and week 3 is very quickly filling up as well. So if you are interested, please get in touch very quickly.
Okie dokie. But the other thing you were mentioning before, Chris, was a spirit tasting. Was that right?
Absolutely. So we're not just about wine at the Wine Cellar. We are also getting pretty handy with spirits these days. And we have our annual spirits tasting coming up on the 11th of November. So tickets for that are £35 per ticket. We will have, I was counting it up this morning, about 7 or 8 different spirit suppliers, some local, some are companies who we work with across in the UK. So there will be loads and loads of different awesome, unique, crazy things on. So it's well worth having a look at that. You can book tickets on our website, or you can send us a Facebook message, email, give us a call. But more info will be released on that as we've got more to give out. But it's going to be an absolutely brilliant night. But yeah, if you want any more information about these things, please just give us a call or an email, and we'd be happy to get you on board.
There you go. Plenty to look forward to, whether it's wine, whether it's spirits, whether it's beers. There's always something. That's more or less it for this month. I'll just say thanks very much, gentlemen. Good health.
Cheers.
And here's the next time.